It was a little bit too steep, and we rolled down the mountain. One of my passions is off-roading or wheeling. We do a lot of wintertime snow wheeling, and we kind of progressed up to an 85 Toyota pickup. It was converted to propane, full EXO cage on 40-inch tires, dual cases. But I had bought this truck from a guy not realizing what it was. It was just a SR5 extra cab 85 Toyota pickup, 85, so it had the solid front axle. Where we're at in the kind of off-roading and wheeling that we do, choosing a 80s Toyota, specifically with a solid front axle, you can get a ton of articulation, and parts are cheap, easy to find. And then the support community that we had that also off-roads, everyone runs Toyota, so it's super easy to kind of swap meet for parts if we need. And then when you're broke down on the trail, if everyone's kind of running the same thing, it is also equally as easy to repair on the trail. There's been many times when we're broke down overnight and you're having to kind of think outside the box for repair. A lot of Chevy stuff works on Toyotas or vice versa. In between all of us, it gave us a way to repair and continue on. Propane, you could run it upside down as long as you had oil pressure and run the winch or anything you needed. Dual cases, so you could gear down to nothing. And then propane, you could run it down to about 100 RPMs with all that gear reduction and just put your way up the hills or wherever you needed to go. Again, because parts are so interchangeable, a lot of V6 or Chevy parts we would graft on. So I was running large truck coolant systems and large truck power steering coolers and that kind of stuff. So that way, this thing could function in sub-zero weather and upside down if it needed to be. I didn't realize the motor had been swapped out until after we did the dual cases. It was actually a turboed truck, and it was in really good condition, and I chopped that thing up. So I got rid of the fenders. This thing, we trashed it, saws all to it. And had I known it was a turboed truck, which, it didn't even have the stock steering wheel, or I would have known it was turboed. I would have converted it back to original and probably made a bunch of money off of it. But unfortunately, it got turned into a wheeler. We have what's called Wild Bill. It's kind of an off-road course. It's kept up with a local off-road club. And it is the backside of Blacktail Ski Resort. And so there's 50 miles of trail and obstacles. And then in the wintertime, you try to snow wheel and make it to the summit. So every weekend or week or whatever, every time there's snow, you just try to plow through and see you can make it to the top. And in this particular night, we had went night wheeling, me and a buddy. I think it was probably close to 3 or 4 in the morning by the time we were headed down. And it's just real switchbacky, and there were a bunch of other trucks and Jeeps in front of us, and I had decided to high side and pass everybody to kind of show off a little bit. And there was an argument in the truck going on at this time about not doing this, and I did it anyway, and it was a little bit too steep, and we rolled down the mountain, down the switchback, and when we landed, we were upside down facing the first truck in the consist. Yeah, that turned into an all-night event to get it to flip back over. My passenger, his elbow was outside the kind of on the window seal and got banged up pretty bad. Luckily, there was a full roll cage. It did its job. It only shattered all of the windows and didn't crush us, but it did its job. And on the way down, I don't know if this is true or not, but I did wake up with a black eye, and I'm 99% sure that my passenger punched me in the face on the way we were rolling down the mountain because we were rolling. So that's been kind of the ongoing joke. And we did all the modifications ourselves on the truck. So as we continued to modify, I think we kind of got braver and braver. Kind of, you're wearing your armor as you're driving. One particular night decided that, so we used to live probably a half mile from the Flathead River. It is not a small river. It's not a creek. It is an actual river. and decided upon everyone's better judgment that I could make it from our local boat launch to a small island in the middle of the river. Normally, when the river's low, you can walk to this island, and then there is a way to get to the boat launch. But at night, when the river's high, I mean, there's no way to even know. And so we decided to drive to the island, which we made it through the water to the island. And then I thought that I could make it from the island to the boat launch. And it took, a few feet off the island before I was immediately just off the edge of anything, and ended up drifting me downriver. Luckily, there were no doors on the truck. Climbed out of the truck and hopped on the roof and held on to the old roll cage as I got swept down to the closest sandbar. Called a few friends, and it was probably, I would say, a couple 100 feet in chain, and then 3 diesel trucks and 2 winches to retrieve the truck. And I think we got it out of the river at about 6 a.m. So it was an all night event. Immediately after we got it back home, drained the oil, pulled the plugs, it fired right up. We repaired what needed repaired, and then I don't think it was a month later, we got the crazy idea to drive it to the local dirt bike track at night and run it on the dirt bike track and see how it would do. So we realized after the first lap, so I asked what the fastest any of the dirt bikes, so we had a whole crowd of people, and I asked what one of the dirt bikers' fastest time was, and he told me, and I told him we could beat it. So we took off and ran it one direction. Then he flagged us and said we were going the wrong way, so we turned around and ran to the other direction. And lockers, 4-wheel drive, I mean, we were jumping it off of all the big jumps. We ended up hitting a jump so hard we broke both seatbelts, the transmission, we broke all the bolts that hold it to the engine, transfer case came apart, and then the front axle, it's a solid front axle that we had gusseted, bent, actually bananaed, and we limped it home with about a 1/2 inch of rubber touching the ground because the tires were so cambered up. Yeah, we ended up, again, fixing the truck, tearing everything back down, and then beefing it up wherever it needed it, and gusseting whatever to prevent this from happening again in the future. And we recently just sold the truck, and the person who owns it is doing a diesel swap conversion to it to give it a little more power. So it still lives. It's still out there. Total investment, $10,000 to $15,000 over the course of a couple years. I picked it up for $1,200. My initial investment was probably $2,500, $3,000. And then every time we broke something, it was upgrade or repair. A lot of the stuff you can't get anymore. So those solid front axles are impossible to find. I actually burnt through 2. Finding a second one 4 hours away in Havre, Montana, that's having to drive after work all night to swap for, I had parts he needed, this guy had some parts I needed, and then, driving all the way back home, getting home at 6 in the morning and just going to work. So it was kind of just fixing the truck was as much fun as driving it, because it was always an adventure to find parts or find what we needed to make it work.
Who wants a free carbon fiber ring? Well, right now, Patrick Adair Designs is giving away a free carbon fiber ring with any purchase if you use the code VINWIKICF at checkout on their website. You can find them at the link in the description below. You can also follow along on Patrick Adair's YouTube channel. You've seen him here telling car stories, but over there, he documents his journey in entrepreneurism and some of the amazing things they do to create rings out of the most interesting materials from Earth and from space. So check them out now and thank them for their support of VINWiki.